The way to surmount threats facing Japan is to conquer Joseon, make it our tributary and advance into the Asian continent, Yoshida Shoin once said. Korea's peninsula lies between the three big nations that played major roles in the World War, which were Japan, China, and Russia in the Eastern Asia. Lying in the middle of those three powerful nations, Korea was most likely to be influenced by its surroundings. Since the 19th century, the Westerner already had an eye on Korea for trade. However, they isolated themselves from the world and their kingdom was known as the Hermit Kingdom. After nearly 80 years, in 1876, Korea signed a friendly treaty with Japan and opened itself to the world, which allowed the US and the Westerner to start trading and bringing over diplomats and missionaries, who are mostly Protestants. Seemed like trading didn't satisfy the Japanese. They had a further view of Korean potential as an industrial center that flourished capitalism and extended the Japanese economic empire. Moreover, Korea was a very decent entrance for the Japanese to mainland Asia. Early 20th century, King Kojong was forced into abdication by Japan. Consequently, in 1905, Korea becomes Japan's protectorate and it was annexed by Japan 5 years later. During 35 years of colonization in Korea, the Japanese installed colonial government and sent over high-position officers, thus recruited Koreans to work for the authority. The Korea was economically exploited by the Japanese to prepare themselves for wars and growing consumption of rice. For the first years of its rule, the Japanese mainly obtained food and decided to take Korea as their agriculture base. Therefore, many Korean farmers' land were taken away from them. Japan manufacturing empire expanded with many massive chemical electric industries and hydroelectricity power built in North Korea. In terms of controlling businesses, the Korean only share 1.5% of the industrial capital. The enterprises in Korea was mostly owned or invested and controlled by the Japanese. 25% of Korean population was living away from where they were born to serve for the Japanese industry in the North Korea or displaced from their hometown for the Japanese agriculture purposes. To provide the Japanese with ways to export goods back to Japan, they improved the communication systems and building roads, railways. Japan's assimilation policy in Korea was very firm. Korean was forced to shut down their editorial office, change their names into Japanese, insert Japanese values into their education, distort their history into a myth. Thus, the Japanese also executed many Korean intellects. The Japanese and European literary values also flooded into Korea and formed ideas such as social reform, reform against the colonial government, and often discussed among the Korean writers, despite the Japanese discouraged rebellion. Even though some Korean landlords really gained benefits from the Japanese colonization, such as gaining land, money in return for support and appropriate behaviors, the majority of the Korean people protested. The most outstanding revolt had to be the reading of Declaration of Independence in March 1st movement of the Korean students in 1919. Leading the march were Christian and Jung Dok-yeol. As the results, nearly 8,000 people lost their lives and thousands of people were arrested due to the Japanese use of weapons. Thousands more ran to Siberia and Manchuria, away from the Japanese execution. The resisting Korean force didn't stop but continued. The Nationalist Party and provisional government were formed outside of Korea. Immigrants in Siberia formed Communist Party with the help of Russian politician Vladimir Lenin. The Korean Revolutionary Army was formed in Manchuria and led by Kim Il-sung. The Provisional Government of Republic of Korea, on the other hand, led by Syngman-rhee, who mainly received Western education and anti-communist. After the Japanese and the German surrender in World War II, the Japanese gave up their colonies. Two sides of the Allies, the capitalists and the communists, divided the losing side's colonies. To avoid conflicts and put a stop to the expansion of communism of the Soviet, the U.S. officer to 38 degrees north, a boundary dividing American-controlled South Korea and Soviet-controlled North Korea. U.S. and Soviet established a trusteeship to assist Korean Provisional Government to organize the regime and gain their own full independence. Independence came to Korea abruptly, left Koreans somewhat surprised. At the response, the Committee for Preparation of Korean Independence, for short CPKI, was formed. In September 1945, the Korean People's Republic comprised of 50 leaders was established. UN Mission in Korea, UNTCOK, supervised the South Korean election, an idea proposed by the US that wasn't approved by the Soviet or the North. The election went on with 100 vacant seats of North Korea in the National Assembly due to their disagreement for UN intervention. The South Korea became Republic of Korea, ROK for short, and its National Assembly was elected in May 1948, with the constitution of presidential form of government and elected president with 4 years term. Syngman-rhee was ROK's first president in August 1948. The Korean local regime, People's Committee, along with other people seeking reform, were crushed down by the Syngman regime. Around 6,000 people were killed for opposing. For the northern part, supervised and backed up by the Communist Soviet, established a state in September 1948, called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, led by leader Kim Il-sung. After the establishment of two new states in Korean Peninsula, Soviet Union and the US withdrew their troops throughout 1948 and 1949. Even though DPRK and ROK were separated, one didn't lose the intention of unifying the peninsula under one government. The state officially went to war with the well-armed DPRK, seizing almost the entire peninsula after days of attacking the ill-equipped ROK. U.S. immediate response to the threat called the expansion of communism was sending troops over and striking back to ROK gain back their lands. The war ended in 1953 with an agreement signed. However, the war even stressing on the different direction two states aim at and deepened the hatred as the result of foreign intervention. The race in economy between two nations was also vigorous. The North had the heavy industry that Japan earlier invested and set up. Though DPRK declared itself economically and politically independent and among the top industrialized countries in Asia for about 20 years after 1945, DPRK heavily depended on the Japanese heritage and Russia's support for oil. On the other hand, ROK is very likely falling far behind DPRK, as it only possessed light industries such as textile and light electronics. With the nation just opened up itself to the world for 10 years, Japan's colonialism of Korea was a big changing leap toward the Koreans. Despite the political or economic differences of ROK and DPRK, regarding this issue of Japanese tyrannical and exploiting colonialism, it had imprinted a brutal image in the mind of the Korean Peninsula people. Regardless the attempts of nationalists on their way to fight for independence, Korea ended up just to be a great mine and battlefield for great powers to exploit and fought over. The independence of two separate states on the Korean Peninsula was the outcome of two giant influences, the capitalism and the communism.